Oh my god guys, I had a baby! What's up you guys, it's Ashling. Welcome back to my channel. As this title says, I just had a baby. I have my son Noah on the 13th of May 2021 at 1:46 a.m. and he's lying here beside me in his little docket top type thing. I'm just hoping that I can get through this entire video without him stirring or waking up. It's not as easy as just sitting down filming a video anymore. I am just not really sure how I'm ever going to do YouTube videos again. But anyway, I will do another baby video at some stage when I have a little bit more time, and we'll actually discuss what it's like being a new mother. But that is not today's video. Today I want to talk about my labor and birth story, and it's a really positive one, and I really wanted to get this video out super quick. It's been 3 weeks since I had Noah, so I am kind of fresh in my mind of everything. A lot of stuff I forget, so I have written notes down, and Paddy helped me remember everything. Like, he was literally on the ball. So I just want to get up my labor. Yeah, I want to get up everything here so I can start from the beginning with you guys. I just want to say to anybody who is a first time mum, or someone who's never been through labor, or somebody even who has and maybe had like a traumatic first time and just wants a positive story, I just want to say that I've heard all the negative stories, and I totally relate to anybody who's never had a baby, or if you've had a traumatic first time. And hearing those stories does not help when you are pregnant or when you're just about to give birth. They're just so unhelpful. All they do is just put panic into you and stress. The amount of stories that people will tell you about their horror stories. So I just want to kind of bring a little bit of positivity. Now, you might hear my labor story and be like, oh my god, that is not a positive labor story. I would be freaked out by some of those things, or that is not what I would like. So it's all got to do with your interpretation of what is positive. But for me, I found that my whole experience, my whole birth, my whole labor, my whole pregnancy, everything was really positive. I didn't have any negativity other than the fibroid, which we've talked about to a length, and I mean, we've made a whole video on it. I do hope that this video helps in some way. The other thing I want to discuss just before I get into my labor and delivery story is that I delivered in an Irish hospital. Not every single Irish hospital is the same. The hospital that I gave birth in is predominantly midwife run in the section where I gave birth. So anyway, that's enough rambling. Let's start this story from the beginning. So I want to go back all the way to 40 weeks and 1 day, because I think this is kind of important. I just wanted to talk about a thing that I ended up getting done, which is called a sweep. I had no intentions of getting the sweep done because I had read it's invasive and it's unnecessary and you don't need it done. It's not been proven to work one way or the other. So I ended up on May the 5th going in to get the sweep done because I had rejected it the first time, and I said, look, I'll just try it this time. In my hospital, they will not let you go 10 days overdue because it is dangerous for baby and for mum, so they don't let you go over 10 days. Again, that's not general practice in every maternity hospital in Ireland, just in the one I gave birth in. So they brought me in when I was 1 day overdue, or what they considered overdue is 40 weeks. Some hospitals don't consider overdue until 41 weeks. Some hospitals don't even consider overdue till 42 weeks. It just depends on your hospital. So on May the 5th, I went in and got this sweep done, and I was already 50% effaced. If you don't know what the sweep is, definitely look into it, because I had to look it up and look into why you would need it done, and that was kind of why I rejected it the first time. It did absolutely nothing for me, just to kind of clarify that. It did nothing but kind of cause me discomfort and cramping for the day that I got it done. So I just felt like it was unnecessary, and if I am fortunate enough to have another pregnancy, I think I will skip it altogether. It was just so unnecessary. I was 50% effaced already, which already meant that I was starting to go into labor, but you can't be 50% effaced. You can even be 3 centimeters dilated for weeks before you give birth. So I wasn't really too fussed on that. I knew my body would have the baby when it was ready. Also, within that week, I went and got reflexology, which didn't really do anything other than make me feel super comfortable. At 41 weeks exactly, I lost my mucus plug. I had noticed this blob of mucus. If you want to look up what it looks like, it looks, not to be too gross, but it does look like phlegm, or like something that would come out of your nose. And then at 41 weeks and 1 day, which meant I was 8 days overdue, I started to go into labor myself at 7 a.m. on Tuesday morning. Now, I just want to kind of say something before I talk about when I went into labor. Well, what I mean by went into labor, I started having contractions. I don't know if it's classified as actual full-on labor, but I'm going to classify it as my labor story from beginning to end, which was actually 36 hours in the end. But it sounds like an awful lot of time, but majority of it I was just walking around, having a shower, you know, looking after myself and getting myself ready, and last few checks for the hospital bag. It wasn't like I was lying on my back pushing for 36 hours, which if you've never had a baby before, like, I didn't know what the hell this long labor meant. The day before I went into labor, Patty and I had some intimate time together. This was the very last, like, this was literally a couple of hours before I started having contractions, and I had heard that that can bring on labor. I had tried basically everything at this stage to try and go naturally into labor, because I've heard that, again, inductions are not great. But anyway, besides the point, I don't know if that brought on the contractions or if I was just starting to go into labor myself, but it definitely helped. I remember being all the time going along going, am I gonna know a contraction? Like, I've been having like weird cramps and stuff. You know, a contraction, they are so different. They take away your breath almost. They say when you cannot talk through a contraction, that's when it's kind of like at its peak. You probably should be in a hospital. But at the early stages of my contractions, I was able to talk through them, and they were just like an overwhelming surge of pain. Unless you had a contraction, they're really hard to explain. But the best way that I can explain it is like a severe period cramp, and it just kind of builds and builds, and then it subsides and goes away, and then it's like you never had a pain before. It's so weird. They're so weird. Like, I did not think a contraction would be like that. I thought that it would just be consistent pain, but once the contraction passes, you have no pain at all, and it's just like normal. You can go back to talking or doing whatever you were doing. I decided to have a shower because I didn't know if I would have time later on, or if the contractions would start getting closer and closer. I rang the midwife in my hospital, and they just said, no, you're fine. Time the contractions. If they start getting really, really close, then, you know, come in yourself. But if they're staying far apart, at this stage, they were probably about 10 minutes apart, and they were probably lasting maybe, I think, 30 seconds, so not that long, peaking at around 15 seconds and then going away. So it wasn't that long. I was due to go in and have my COVID test because I was going to be induced on May 12th at 8 a.m. I was obviously wary that I was starting to have contractions and stuff, but once the midwife told me they were so far apart and they weren't lasting long, that I could go get my COVID test. So I went and got that. It turned up negative later that night. So what I did that whole day was I just watched movies, and I went for a walk. I went out to the lake. The swans were out. It was lovely. I was having contractions while walking around the lake. It was so lovely. I just had like a really nice first stage of labor, and the contractions were just easy, very manageable. They weren't causing me too much discomfort or anything. They were just kind of like, you would almost just kind of make a fist and just breathe through it. I did the hypnobirthing. If you're currently pregnant, I highly recommend doing hypnobirthing. Hypnobirthing, it is hypnotherapy. Oh, we're having like a stir here. We spat out our soother, so I had to put that back in. It's not hypnotizing you, it's like hypnotherapy, and it's to help like reprogram your brain almost into like, or preparing your brain, I suppose, for birth, because a lot of like labor and everything got to do with giving birth is more so mind over matter. And I found that like once my mind was retrained to thinking this was a positive good thing, I was getting a baby out of it. Every single pain, or as they call them, surges in hypnobirthing, is to help push the baby down and get the baby out, and you get a reward at the end, and your whole brain, your whole mindset towards giving birth becomes more like an empowerment thing. So I definitely highly recommend hypnobirthing. And also hypnobirthing is used to help you go with an unmedicated birth. I ended up getting an epidural, which I will talk about later on, and I had every intentions of getting it anyway. Even though I was doing the hypnobirthing, I had thought epidural the whole way along, and I had a great experience, but we'll get to that bit in a minute. When I was going around the lake and counting my contractions, at that stage they were still 10 minutes apart, and they were not lasting longer than 30 to 35 seconds. So Wednesday morning comes around, and I wake up at 5 a.m. and they are so extreme, the pains now at this stage, and they're coming a lot more frequent. And I had what's known as your bloody show, so I had that already, and I was like, look, I'm so happy I'm actually going to the hospital, because I just felt kind of at that stage they were coming a lot more frequent, and I wanted to be in a hospital. I wanted to be somewhere where I was ready to give birth just in case, and I just wanted to be comfortable, have my bags and everything ready. I just wanted to be in the place where I was going to give birth to my son. So I just wanted to be ready to go give birth. The pains are so extreme, they're so close, they're coming regularly, and I get into the hospital and it all kind of stops. I was like, oh my god, I'm making a liar out of myself. As soon as I got in and like signed off that I got like a negative COVID test and I was in the waiting room, I was like, this is so annoying. Now my contractions have like completely gone away. I was like, damn it. So anyway, I was sent off to my room. It was great because I was brought tea and toast. A lot of people in America are like, why are you allowed to eat before you give birth? So far away from giving birth. They give you food, and the tea and toast in an Irish hospital when you're having a baby is like nothing else on this planet. It is the nicest thing ever. It's always Brennan's white bread and Kerrygold pure Irish butter, and it's just the nicest thing ever. It's just so amazing. So I was sitting there having my tea and toast with my legs up, and I was just chilled, really, really relaxed. I even made note of it. I had breakfast at 8:40 a.m. Doctors started coming around 9 o'clock to do their rounds. My labour pain said slow down, possibly because I was in hospital. It's really weird. Your body does that. It's like, no, I don't want to give birth here. No, I'm not ready yet. No. And it just like the labour stopped. 9:30 a.m. They strapped me up to listen to the baby's heartbeat, as I had to be monitored for 30 minutes. And then I got my cannula in my hand as well, just in case I needed to be put in a drip for whatever reason or for any other reason. They took bloods and stuff at that time. I did a trace on the baby's heart for 30 minutes. I was just lying there for 30 minutes. You normally can walk around if you wanted a trace, like where you can walk around. That's fine, but I didn't. I just was lying down. But anyway, 10 a.m. the doctors came around to do the inspections. So they had gotten the read off the baby's heart. And everyone was saying to me the whole way along, wow, that's such a happy baby. He's so happy. Obviously, we didn't know it was a he at the time, but they're like, your baby's so happy. He's so content. And even when I was giving birth, the midwife was like, this baby is so happy. Like the heartbeat is great and consistent, and there's no dips in it or anything like that. Like it was just great. At 10 a.m. the doctor came around and he said that I was a great candidate for the Propass, which is a prostaglandin, kind of looks like a very teeny tiny tampon that they put into your cervix to help it dilate quicker. And he said I was an excellent candidate for it because number one, I was a first time mum. You can't get it if you have had a baby already. And secondly, I had started to go into labour myself. So he said that this should speed it up. Obviously, it's an intervention. You can reject it. You can lie there, you know, for the whole length of time and try and go into labour yourself. You're not obliged to do anything. Obviously, it's your body, your right, whatever. But I wanted to have the baby, and I said, look, if this is going to help with my labour progress, yeah, go for it. Even though people had said, oh my God, you know, getting any sort of interventions when you're pregnant or any sort of inductions or anything like that is really negative. And I had an induction and I had a really positive experience with it. I don't know if it's because I'd started going into labour myself or whatever. I was 2 centimeters dilated at that time. Contractions were going to start speeding up, the doctor had explained. Now, I will say getting the Propass in was very painful. Not as painful as it coming out, which I will discuss momentarily, but it going in was quite painful. And also there was quite a lot of blood as well because obviously my cervix was dilating. So I was placed on one of those like little mats just if any blood did come out, but I don't really care about blood or anything like that. Even when they take the blood out of your hand when you're getting the cannula in, I'm like looking at it. So the midwife did tell me at this stage to start tracking my contractions. So between 11 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. the contractions were getting closer. They were lasting longer. I was using a ball, which I used all during my pregnancy. I loved the ball. It's the best thing ever. It was great when I was going through contractions. I could just like move back and forward, side to side. I had like my legs out, spread out, and I could do like movements like this. It just really, really helped me. And then the pains were just getting so frequent, and they were the contractions were a lot closer. So then I asked the nurse, could I use a TENS machine? And she was like, yeah, no problem. So she hooked me up with the TENS machine, which was great. Basically, a TENS machine is like a little electric shock. You get 2 on your lower back and then 2 in the middle of your back. And every time you get a contraction, you like whack up the power of this TENS machine and it starts giving like an electric surge through your body. The weirdest sensation, but it's so pleasing, and it helps take your mind off the contraction because you're getting this like little electric shock. It's like a little elastic band been flicked on your back. At first it felt really uncomfortable, but then as I was going along with my contractions, it actually really, really helped and I got used to it. So I was listening to music. I had like Coldplay on, I had my soundtrack on that I had planned for in my birth preferences. So I was listening to music, which helped so much. Somebody wrote in my comments, are like, I wasn't bothered with music when I was in labor. If I did not have my music, I actually feel like I would be lost. lost. Because don't forget, like during COVID, you're doing all this alone. Like I was on my own from 8 a.m. all the way through every single contraction. The nurses check on you, but they don't come in very often. Like you're in labor by yourself. So I really, really, really relied on my music. It really helped me, and music is my everything. If there was no such thing as music in the morning, I actually feel like my mental health would deteriorate overnight. Music is so important to me. And then walking a lot. I had that in my birth preferences that I wanted to be up and walking. They read all my birth preferences, by the way, which I know like you know they're going to, but I was so shocked that they actually really wanted to like help me with it. So anytime a midwife came into me and I was maybe lying down because I needed a break, she was like, would you not get up and move around? And I was like, yeah, okay. And I think that really helped with my labor, because I was up from 8 a.m. and the day before as well, walking around at the lake, even watching movies. I was on my ball. I was up upwards always. And that's what they say in the hypnobirthing, is to be UFO, which is upwards, forwards and open. I was up moving around talking to my mum and my sister the entire time. We were on WhatsApp and mum would ring me and talk me through contractions, and I was obviously talking to Paddy as well, but I just felt like my mum and my sister really, really, really helped me in those moments of time, because Paddy was working as well. Like I felt so sorry for him because he felt so out of the loop, like he couldn't help or anything. Mum was explaining to him what was going on, and then I was texting him at the same time. It's hard on the dads because they're not there for you, but you're going through it. You're just so focused on like getting the baby out and going through your labor and breathing through your contractions. You're not even worried that you're on your own. You really don't care. Like I promise you, if you're having a baby during COVID and you're on your own, you're not going to care. You're just going to go through the contractions and everything that you need to get done and just not care, because your main focus is getting the baby out safe. Midwife came up and she was like feeling my contractions. She said to me that I was dealing so well with the pain. She was like, you haven't had any pain relief. Do you want anything? I was like, what can I have? So this was at 5:30. So she said that they can organize some pain relief for me. I was like, okay, because I was getting literally a 2-minute break between my contractions and they were lasting 1 minute. So I was getting so exhausted. I've been up since 5 a.m. So I've been 12 hours on my feet, like walking around, going through my contractions. I didn't lie down, I don't even think, for like 10 minutes. Every time I was down, I was like, get up, move around. And then if a midwife came in and saw me lying down, she's like, come on, move up you get. And I think that is why my labor, like I just feel like that's why my labor went the way it went, because I was up so much. But I was really, really tired. Like I was quite exhausted. At 4:45 p.m. the ProPass was taken out because I'd progressed enough and I was getting contractions too close. So they wanted to slow down my contractions. They were coming way too close, and I obviously wasn't dilating like much further, so they needed to remove the ProPass, and they were like, it's done its job. Getting the ProPass removed, guys, was probably the most excruciatingly painful experience of my whole entire birth. It was less painful giving birth to him than it was getting that ProPass taken out. But obviously I had an epidural, so I didn't feel any pain with him. I was like squeezing onto the nurse's arm when it was been taken out. I have a very, very high threshold for pain. So if I say it was painful, it was definitely painful, but manageable. Everything in labor is manageable. You're not going to die from the pain of anything, and you're not going to pass out. And it's all like short periods of time as well that the pain you have to go through. And it's all so worth it. Like so worth it. I remember Amy, one of my best friends, saying to me, I love labor. She's like, I look forward to labor because I love the whole experience of it. I feel really empowered and I look forward to giving birth to the baby in the end. And I was like, how on earth could you look forward to labor? And now after being through it, I totally understand what she's talking about. You just feel so empowered and just so positive and just so happy. And even the pain, you're just like, I don't care, because you're getting your baby at the end of it and it's worth it. I was then given pethidine at around 6 o'clock. If you don't know what pethidine is, it's kind of like an opiate. It doesn't take away the pain, but it just kind of calms you down. Because I was so exhausted, the midwife really wanted me to kind of relax. She said, you don't have to take any pain relief if you don't want to, but this is available. And I says, okay, I'm taking it. My mum had it when she was pregnant with me. Gave me pethidine around 6 o'clock, and they told me at 6:30 that Paddy could come in and visit me, because they had lifted restrictions in my hospital that partners can now visit from 7 till 8 every day. I rang him and I was like, you can come in at 7 o'clock to see me. And he was like, perfect. I was lying on the bed when he came in and he was cuddling me for a whole hour, just rubbing my back. I was like on cloud nine because I was on the pethidine. I was watching the clouds go by, but it just really relaxed me. And Paddy stroking my back and talking to me and holding me and kissing me. It was just so lovely. And I was going through the contractions, like I said, it doesn't take away the pain of them, but it just makes it a little bit more manageable. And then the doctor came in and checked me, and Paddy had to wait outside the curtain. Then he said it was time for me to go to the delivery suite. That Paddy didn't have to go home. I was now officially in active labour. And the midwife said to me, oh, this is great. She was like, it was probably from the oxytocin of your partner, like stroking you and hugging you and holding you for that 1 hour that just helped you progress so much. Because before that, they had checked me and they were like, no, like she's not dilated enough at all. So, you know, there's no point. I presume I had to be like 3-4 centimeters dilated at this stage. I didn't even ask because, like I said, the pethidine just had me like floating on a cloud. Brought into the labour suite, and this is so surreal because they had like the little baby area ready for the baby to go into, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe like my child is going to be in there. I'm just so excited to meet this baby. I was a little bit sleepy at this time, like I said, because I'd had the pethidine, and the midwife told me that the doctor was going to have to break my water because my water hadn't gone at this stage. So once the waters were broken, the midwife then told me that I could go for a walk up and down the stairs for a couple of hours and then come back at around 11 o'clock to progress my labour. So this was roughly around 9 at this stage, 9 p.m. The doctor came in, broke my water. It was so weird because once they break your water, if you've ever had your waters broken, every contraction that comes after that, you just feel this water gushing out, and it just feels like you're peeing yourself, but it's like gushing out. It was the weirdest feeling ever. When the midwife said to me, oh, you can go for a walk now, the doctor says, no. Baby's coming soon. She's 5 centimeters dilated. And the midwife was like, okay, we don't need you to walk around. I'm presuming the midwife wanted me up and down the stairs to help with dilation, but I was already dilated to not 5 centimeters. So the doctor was like, no, she's ready for an epidural. I said that I wanted to get the epidural, and it's so funny because the midwife that was delivering Noah, she had delivered her babies in the same room that I was in, her first baby, sorry. And her name was Lisa, which is my best friend's name. And I just was like, I really connect to this woman. She was just so lovely, like absolutely amazing. She was from Derry as well. I just absolutely loved my midwife. And the room was really dim, and they had a salt lamp in it. Everything in my birth preferences was just taken, like they took it into consideration. It was all just very calm and relaxed, and I was allowed to move around up until obviously getting the epidural. And like I said, I wanted to be upwards during everything. I will explain when I was giving birth how they had me upwards, because obviously an epidural numbs you, so you can't be like on all fours or doing anything like that, but they did have an option to keep me upright whilst I was giving birth to him. At 10 p.m. I got the epidural. This took about 20 minutes because you have to stay incredibly still. You have to lean over, like your chin is pressed into your chest. And I had Paddy holding my hands out at the front, and every single time I got a contraction, I had to tell Paddy so he could tell the anaesthetist, that's such a mouthful, to, you know, stop the applying or stop trying to insert the epidural, that I was getting a contraction. Once I got the epidural, he then tested me with this like really cold water. He tested my arm and he was like, do you feel how cold that is? And I was like, oh my god, it's really cold. He's like, right, now I'm going to put it on your bump. So he put it all on my bump. It started to get like really cold, like down my legs, and then it go over my bump, and I wouldn't feel anything, and then got up to nearly my boobs kind of area, and I started to feel it again. It was just so weird. I was like, I don't feel anything. So once the epidural had fully kicked in, the anaesthetist was happy. The midwife then told Paddy, look, you go get something to eat. It's going to be a couple more hours before we're pushing. And I put on my music again and I just fell asleep. I fell asleep until he came back. I'm actually not sure what time he even came back at, because I was just so relaxed. I had been experiencing contractions for over like 30 hours at this stage, and I just really wanted to relax. I really wanted to sleep, so I got to kind of sleep a little bit. He keeps like freaking out. He's like spat out a soother, and then like he keeps waking up, like freaking himself out. Okay, Baba did not want to be lying down there anymore, so he's up here with me. Yeah, you're very tired. I don't know what's going on with him today, but anyway, we're going to try and finish the story quickly. At 11 or 12, I was feeling a lot of pressure to push. So this is after I got the epidural and Paddy had come back from getting food. I started to feel this kind of like intense pressure like if you really need to go to the toilet, you really need to do a number 2 and you just feel that pressure down there of needing to push. That's how I felt. So the nurse was like, this is brilliant. At 12:40, they put in a catheter. Now, it was 10 centimeters dilated at that stage and -1 station. I should explain about the stations because I didn't actually realize this until the midwife had explained it to me. So not only do you have to be dilated, also your coccyx bone, or the bone just like the long spinal bone, has to move out of the way, and it goes through a couple of like different stages. Starts at like -3, -2, -1, and then goes 1, 2, 3. When it's at 3, it's great because the coccyx bone has moved out of the way, you're ready to push. So not only do you have to be 10 centimeters dilated, you also have to be at station 3 before you can start pushing, which again I knew nothing about until my midwife had kind of explained it to me. I was at -1, which meant that the coccyx bone had started to move out of the way and Paddy could actually see Noah's head, which is really crazy, like, because I had dilated that much. The catheter was put in. The midwife told me that I needed to wait an hour, which would be 1:40, before I could start pushing. The longer you wait, the less intervention you'll need with regards to like suction or with the forceps or with episiotomies or anything like that, and the doctor doesn't need to be present. At that stage, the midwife put me sitting up in the throne, they call it. So the chair that you're giving birth in turns into a seat and it has like a step on the bottom that you can rest your feet on. Gave me a peanut ball and allowed me to rest my feet in the center of the peanut ball. I'll leave like a picture of what a peanut ball looks like. I had my feet together and my knees spread. When I was on that peanut ball, because I was sitting in the upright position, sitting up like I am right now, I was like to Paddy, the urge that I have to push. The urge to push was nearly worse, like trying to like stop myself from pushing was nearly worse than going through a contraction. Like, that's no lie. It was actually just so overwhelming. Like, to try and go through the urge of pushing is what I mean. Like, trying to hold back was just so incredibly difficult. So after 30 minutes, I was saying, look, you're going to have to get my midwife in because I need to start pushing. The midwife came in and she said that the read on Noah's heart was perfect. He was fine. Again, she said, I've never seen such a happy baby. So obviously at that stage, then she checked me and she says, you're at station 3. She's like, I'm happy enough for you to start pushing now. So this was 40 minutes after I had gotten the catheter and was told, you know, you're not to push for an hour. So I lasted 40 minutes, which I was quite proud of myself because the urge was incredible, if I haven't already said. So she took the catheter out then. At 1:30, I started pushing and I pushed for 16 minutes and he was born at 1:46. I couldn't believe how quickly I pushed him out. Pushing was probably the most amazing part of it, and even one of the midwives came in, like a second midwife. I think she was like the matron, and she said, oh, is this second or third baby? And my midwife was like, no, this is the first baby. And she's like, oh my God, you really have this under control. So I was like pushing, and every time I pushed, like with every contraction, I took a breath then, and I was like, you know, starting again then. So every single push that I could feel the baby moving down, and I could feel the contractions coming because it was like that urge to push. It didn't feel like the contraction, like the pain. It was just the urge. So I would push every single time I had that urge, like 3 strong pushes every time. And then I eventually got to feel Noah's head. I did. I felt your head. And I asked Paddy, I was like, has he got hair? He was like, I can see his hair, because Noah has so much hair. Like, he's really like got a lot of hair. I don't know if you can see, he's like tons of hair. So I was like so ready to meet this baby that just pushing and pushing and pushing was my main priority. And then, like I said, he was born at 1:46 and I burst a blood vessel in my eye, which I didn't know that you could actually do. You can burst blood vessels. I burst them all over my face and everything. And the next morning I was like, oh dear Lord, what did I do to myself? So he was allowed to be skin to me straight away. Again, that was in my birth preferences, and it's standard practice in my hospital anyway. And I had the delayed cord clamping, which again is standard practice in my hospital. Paddy got to cut the cord and Paddy got to announce that he was a boy. It was just all so lovely. After a half an hour, he was taken off me to do like his weight and, you know, clean him up a bit. Then he had gone to the toilet for the first time, the meconium, and he had done it all over my stomach when we were skin to skin. But I didn't really care. Like, we just cleaned it up, put a little hat on him and a little outfit, and then I was transferred to the ward. So Paddy had to leave me then because we had delivered, and he was allowed to stay, like I said, an hour and a bit after Noah was born. and then he had to leave. That was definitely the toughest bit once he was born, was leaving Paddy, and I was just like, I don't want to leave him. Noah was 7 pounds 5 ounces, if I didn't mention when he was born. We went for our 2-week appointment last week, and he's gained nearly a pound. He's 8 pounds now 3 ounces, so he is thriving, and he's been combo fed. He's doing really well. I am so in love. The second I saw him and they put him on my chest, I just cried, because I was like, I am actually so in love with this human. Like, he's just the most precious, beautiful everything to me. Like, I'm so in love with him. I ended up, having a 2nd-degree tear which was inside, and I ended up just having to get 3 stitches to repair it. So my recovery has been pretty smooth, pretty fine. Like, I haven't had any issues. I had dissolvable stitches, so I feel like they're probably gone at this stage. I don't know how long they last, but everything is recovering really, really well. I was in an awful lot of pain obviously the next morning after giving birth, but everything in general went so smoothly. I really feel like my labor, delivery, birth, whatever, was all so like smooth and really relaxed, and I just felt really at ease and like super prepared to do all this. If you're watching this and you are nervous or concerned about going into labor or giving birth or anything like that, just don't be afraid. Everyone's birth experience is different. Just go in and know that this is your birth experience, and you do have power over your body, and you can control all the situations. Just try and keep as calm as possible. Do your breathing. The breathing is so important. Even though you don't feel like you have any control over what's happening, you do. Just keep remembering that and reminding yourself it's your body and you have so much control over everything that's happening to you. And ask questions. I asked so many questions. I asked the doctors what was going on or why they were doing certain things, and it just helped me to feel a bit more empowered over my birth and my labor, that I kind of was a bit more aware of what was going on in my body and what they were doing to me and why that was happening. And I just felt like my midwives were just so amazing. I felt like the doctors that I'd dealt with were great as well, but midwives are, they're just the miracle workers, and I couldn't commend my midwives in my hospital enough. They were the most amazing women I ever had to deal with. Even after I'd had Noah and I was on my ward struggling with breastfeeding, they came and they helped me and they talked me through it. There was a lactation specialist who helped me so much, and now we're like flying it. But I do say that, the midwives are really great, and just if you do feel worried or you do feel stressed or anything, talk to them when you're in the hospital, and just know you do have support in the midwives, and talk to them, ask questions, and know that just because you're giving birth alone, or maybe you do have your partner with you, just know that you are in good hands, and they only want the best for you, and they want everything to happen safely, and nobody wants mum or baby to be traumatized or to be upset over the experience. I hope that you enjoyed my delivery labor story. I hope that it helped some of you in some way, and I will insert links to the hypnobirthing company down below that I used. I really recommend it. The last note that I will leave off on, just discussing my birth story, is I think that everything went the way I wanted to because I had no plan. I just had small preferences, which were, like I said, like a dark room and things like that, and my music, and I had those things with me. I think if you go into it with a plan and the plan doesn't happen, that's when you start getting upset. Whereas I just went in with an open mind. I wanted my baby born safe, and I do feel like that's what helped me with my labor and delivery. It's just that I had no expectations on it. I didn't know what to expect. I just wanted the baby born safe. And I do feel for myself personally, going into labor, that was the best outlook for me, because it just meant that I didn't have any expectations, or I didn't know what to expect. I was just happy that he was born safe. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I know it was really long. Thank you for staying if you did stay till the end. I love you guys so much, and I will do another video kind of talking about early times in motherhood and how I'm getting on. Thank you so much for watching. Bye from me. Bye from baby Noah. I love you guys. Mwah. Bye.